By the third year of living with face blindness, the only face I could recognize was Kevin Gray's. One day, after a cold fight between us, he pushed me into a crowd in front of everyone. "Be good," he said with a smirk. "Find me, and you can come home with me." Amid the jeers and laughter, I frantically scanned the sea of faces until I finally found his. I lowered my voice, begging, "I promise I'll behave. Please don't leave me." He pulled me into his arms, whispering softly, "You did great, Isla." That night, we stayed together in a hotel. The next morning, I walked out holding his arm, only to come face to face with another Kevin standing across the lobby. Nearly hysterical, the man shouted, "Isla, get off my brother right now." It was then I realized the man I had been with all night wasn't Kevin, it was his twin brother, who had just returned from abroad. 1. By the third year of my face blindness, Kevin discovered a new game to amuse himself. He started taking me out to meet his friends and deliberately leaving me behind in the group, delighting in the panic and confusion on my face as I struggled to find him. "Kevin, isn't tonight your brother's welcome back party? You're still playing this game?" one of his friends asked. The city lights sparkled through the windows as Kevin brought me to yet another party. The room was packed with people, and a young woman sat beside Kevin, clinging to his arm. "I've never seen what face blindness looks like," she said mockingly. "Why don't you put on a little show for us?" "Maybe next time, when I'm acting," I replied quietly. Her name was Jenna York, an up-and-coming actress Kevin had taken a liking to recently. Spoiled by his attention, she thought she could do anything. Tonight, she boldly danced her way over to me, her eyes filled with arrogance, assuming Kevin would indulge her whims. But Kevin shot her a cold look. "Make her perform? Who do you think you are?" Jenna's smug smile froze as tears welled up in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Mr. Gray," she whimpered. Kevin barely glanced at her crying face before grabbing my chin. He studied my blank, expressionless look and laughed dryly. "Isla, even she knows how to use her tears to please me. Why can't you learn? You're like a lifeless doll." After 3 years of dealing with my face blindness, Kevin's patience with me was wearing thin. I turned my head slightly, avoiding his touch, trembling with fear at the game I knew was about to begin. "Kevin," I whispered, "I'm not feeling well. Can we skip the game tonight?" His cold fingers brushed through my hair as he smirked. "No. I'll be sitting right here. You can come back once you find me." He shoved me into the crowd. His friends laughed, teasing him. "Aren't you worried Isla will run off?" Kevin leaned back, carefree. "Don't worry. She's brain damaged. She can't remember anyone's face but mine." 2. Before the party, Kevin and I had already argued. I had delivered lunch to the wrong person earlier that day. Kevin's secretary ended up receiving it. Barely containing his anger, Kevin forced a smile. "Isla, how can you mess up something so simple? Do you have any idea how much trouble I have to clean up because of you?" I apologized and left, but just as I turned the corner, I overheard him talking to his friends. "Kevin, doesn't her stupidity drive you insane?" Kevin chuckled. "Of course. She can't even recognize people, she's dumb as hell. But she got hurt because of me, so I can't exactly yell at her, can I?" I stormed back and confronted him, and that fight led to tonight's punishment. Cold water and ice suddenly drenched me, snapping me out of my thoughts. The sound of a bucket clattering to the floor was followed by a server's panicked voice. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." I stood there, soaked to the bone, looking like a drowned rat in the middle of the grand hall. It seemed like I had terrible luck. At every party, there was always some clumsy server spilling something on me. The young woman handed me a towel and a cup of hot water, pleading, "Miss Isla, please don't report me. I really need this job." Her voice cracked as if she were about to cry. I wiped my face and said hoarsely, "It's fine. You can go." I drank the hot water trying to shake off the chill, when a nearby conversation caught my attention. "Poor thing. She didn't even realize that server is Jenna's friend. Yeah, and remember Kevin's birthday? Someone tripped her, and she hurt her knee. That was Jenna's friend too. It's such a shame. With her face blindness, she can't see through their games and just keeps getting played. I froze in place as humiliation boiled inside me like scalding water. Hey, there she is. Isla, over here. Kevin's friends had spotted me. I lifted my trembling head, staring at the mass of faceless strangers. The sight made me nauseous. Before they could reach me, I turned and stumbled away in the opposite direction. 3. Something wasn't right. It felt like someone had slipped something into my drink. The cold air from the ballroom's air conditioning seeped into my soaked clothes, chilling me to the bone. But no amount of cold could quench the growing heat in my chest. Maybe this was one of Kevin's new games. He was probably worried I'd leave in a fit of anger, so he resorted to underhanded tactics. I steadied myself against the wall, my fingers trembling, and grabbed the arm of a passing server. "Excuse me, have you seen Mr. Gray?" I asked, my voice shaky. "Mr. Gray?" The server hesitated, then pointed toward a distant room. "He's in the lounge." Behind me, I could hear the footsteps of Kevin's friends drawing closer. Panicked, I shoved open the door to the lounge and stumbled inside, crashing into a firm, steady chest. Strong hands caught me, steadying me. The faint scent of sandalwood filled the air. I looked up and saw Kevin's familiar face. Tears streamed down my cheeks instantly. "Kevin." I choked, my voice hoarse with desperation. "I found you. The game, it's over now, right?" My whole body was trembling, like a lamb that had barely escaped the jaws of a predator. Humiliated. Broken. That was Kevin's rule. I had to find him before his friends could humiliate me further. Only then would the cruel game end. But tonight, something about Kevin felt different. His eyes were calm, deep, and distant, nothing like the playful arrogance I was used to. He wrapped an arm around my waist and guided me into the quiet room, his voice soft. "You did well," he said gently. 4. Kevin led me out through a side door and into the hotel elevator. Along the way, people kept greeting him. "Mr. Gray," they said respectfully, bowing their heads. I didn't say a word, staring blankly at the neon lights rising outside the elevator. Kevin was unusually quiet too. He stood behind me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. That heat sent shivers down my spine. Something was off. Kevin had never exuded such an intense, commanding presence before. And his temperature, it felt higher than normal. The moment we stepped into the hotel room, I spun around and pushed him against the door. "Where's the antidote?" I demanded. His shirt was damp from my touch, clinging to his well-defined chest. He casually removed his watch, his hand sliding to support my waist as I began to sink to the floor. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said calmly. The rich scent of sandalwood grew stronger in the dimly lit room, clouding my thoughts. I shoved him away, retreating into the corner, my voice trembling. "Kevin, let's break up." I expected him to laugh, to sneer at me and say, "With the way you are, who else would want you?" But he didn't. Instead, he placed a hand gently on my head, his calloused fingers brushing against my forehead. His voice was low and husky. "If that's what you want, then fine. But tonight, I'll help you." I froze, looking up into his cold, steady eyes. Something about them seemed off. This wasn't the Kevin I knew. But before I could think further, the overwhelming heat inside me drowned out all reason. I grabbed his tie and pulled him down, pressing my lips to his. It was probably the boldest, most reckless thing I'd ever done. Tears streamed down my face as I kissed him, pouring all my anger and humiliation into him. Maybe he felt guilty, because he didn't say a word. He simply let me do whatever I wanted. But after a while, Kevin had enough. He pinned me down on the bed, his teeth clenched in frustration. "Stop moving," he said, his voice tense. "Just be good." When he saw my tears falling again, he gently wiped them away and leaned closer, his tone softening. "Isla, I'll make you feel better." His cool lips pressed against mine, tender and lingering. A shiver ran through me, and I let out a sharp gasp. Instinctively, I grabbed a handful of his hair. He let out a low, pained groan, his voice laced with a dark, seductive charm that sent a chill down my spine. "Easy," he murmured, his breath warm against my ear. "Don't pull so hard." 5. The night had been chaotic and absurd. When I woke up in the morning, the other side of the bed was empty. I buried my face into the pillow, memories of the night before flooding back. Kevin had never been one to care for others, let alone act like that. It was as if he'd become a completely different person. Dragging my tired body out of bed, I opened the door to find him sitting by the window, conducting a video meeting. The rising sun cast a warm, golden glow across his profile, making him look almost ethereal. Hearing the door open, he turned to glance at me. "You're awake?" "Breakfast is on the table," he said, his tone calm and composed. For some reason, the effortless distance in his voice made me freeze. "Kevin, let's break up," I blurted out. The air instantly grew heavy with silence. From the other side of the computer, I heard muffled coughing and awkward whispers. "Mr. Gray, we'll continue this later. We'll send you the meeting notes shortly." I froze. Kevin had always said I wasn't good enough to be seen with him. Yet just now, in front of his company's board members, he hadn't even bothered to mute his mic. I braced myself, expecting cruel sarcasm or mockery. Instead, after a brief pause, Kevin smiled faintly. "All right. Finish your breakfast, and I'll help you pack your things." Half an hour later, I followed Kevin downstairs. His assistant approached nervously. "Mr. Gray, there's an important meeting today. Cancel it," Kevin said, his tone steady and firm. I couldn't help but feel disoriented. Was he being patient with me just because I was leaving? The back of my eyes stung as I climbed into the car. But the moment I stepped inside, the old injury in my knee flared up. My leg gave out, and I collapsed onto Kevin's lap, my face pale from the pain. Kevin caught me by the waist without a word. "Take your time," he said softly. His calm reassurances helped me steady myself. The assistant handed me my phone, saying, "Miss Isla, your phone's fully charged." "Thank you." As I shifted into my seat, the faint, familiar scent of sandalwood on Kevin's body brought back memories of the night before. Frowning, I moved further away from him. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. Notification after notification flooded the screen, followed by an incoming call. The name Kevin Gray lit up on the screen. Stunned, I instinctively answered. A cold, menacing voice came through the line. "Isla, are you trying to get yourself killed?" I froze, lifting my head to look at the man sitting in front of me. He was lounging lazily in his seat, lips unmoving, raising an eyebrow at me with a hint of amusement. I turned my gaze to the street outside, where another Kevin stood on the opposite sidewalk, pale as a ghost, clutching a phone. He shouted, his voice nearly hysterical. "Isla, get away from my brother." 6. For a few moments, my mind felt like it had exploded. A loud buzzing filled my ears. I couldn't hear anything else. "You're Kevin's twin brother?" I stammered. The man in the car smiled faintly. "That's right. Nice to meet you, Isla. I'm Lucas Gray." The blood drained from my face as I remembered the night before, how I'd pinned him to the bed, completely unaware of who he was. Scrambling off his lap in a panic, I nearly fell again. Kevin crossed the street, yanking me roughly out of the car. His jaw was tight with irritation. "Lucas, she didn't cause you any trouble last night, did she?" Their voices were nearly identical, but Kevin's carried a youthful edge, tinged with jealousy and suspicion. Tears welled up in my eyes as panic set in. Kevin was already difficult to deal with, and now I'd unknowingly tangled with his twin brother. Who knew what kind of torment these two might put me through? Lucas, on the other hand, seemed calm and collected. He studied me for a moment, then smiled. Last night? I'm not sure what you're talking about. This morning, I ran into your little girlfriend in the elevator. Though, it seems she mistook me for someone else. His soothing demeanor eased my panic slightly. It felt like he wasn't trying to toy with me. Lucas turned to me, his tone warm and polite. Miss Isla, would you like me to take you home? Kevin pulled me behind him protectively, his expression darkening. Lucas, stop joking around. Isla is my girlfriend. She doesn't need your help. Lucas chuckled knowingly, rolling up his window and driving off. As the taillights disappeared around the corner, Kevin's face turned cold. Isla, where were you last night? My heart pounded as I lowered my head, avoiding his gaze. I didn't go anywhere last night. Liar. Kevin leaned in close, his eyes narrowing as he smirked. So, which one of my friends did you sleep with last night? Just tell me, I won't get mad. His words struck a nerve. My face drained of color as I slapped him hard across the face. For the last time, I didn't go anywhere. I shouted. The red imprint of my hand bloomed across his cheek. Kevin laughed coldly. Relax. I was just joking. Who else would want you but me? I glared at him, my voice firm. Kevin, I want to break up. The humor drained from his face. Is this because of Jenna? Kevin pulled out his phone and called her. The moment she picked up, her voice was cheerful. Mr. Gray, what can I do for you? Because of you, Kevin said coolly, Isla wants to break up with me. What do you think I should do about that? He turned to look at me, his tone unusually soft as he offered, I'll blacklist her for you. Would that make you feel better? Through the phone, Jenna's voice cracked with a sob as she pleaded. Mr. Gray, please don't. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. Kevin raised an eyebrow at me, his voice dripping with mockery. Isla, you got face blindness because of me. I won't let you go. So stop bringing up this breakup nonsense. Seeing the disgust on my face, Kevin's patience snapped. Jenna, get over here right now and apologize to your sister-in-law. Enough. I was trembling, tears streaming down my face. Kevin, I've had enough of this. We're done. Kevin shoved his hands into his pockets, his face indifferent. Anything else you want to say? If not, go home. Jenna's crying, I need to go comfort her. 7. I moved out of Kevin's house after all. A few days later, he called me. So you're really playing games with me, huh? His voice was sharp. Fine, Isla. Don't come crying to me later. Within the first week of our breakup, Kevin and Jenna York appeared on the trending lists 8 times. At the office, people whispered behind my back. He used to treat her like a queen. Now that he's done with her, she just looks pitiful. Well, what do you expect? She can't even recognize people's faces. Honestly, being a low-level assistant is probably the best she can do. They all thought I was drowning in heartbreak. Little did they know, I spent the entire week in a state of unease. Lucas Gray had returned. His office was just a few steps away from my desk, and every day, I couldn't avoid his calm, steady gaze. Sometimes, I even had to face Kevin directly. It was like being slowly tortured. One afternoon, a storm rolled in, and thunder rumbled in the distance. Rain poured in sheets as my manager tossed a black plastic bag onto my desk. Address is in your inbox. Mr. Gray wants you to deliver this. The destination was a 5-star business hotel. I sighed, resigned to my fate. This wasn't the first time Kevin had gone out of his way to make things difficult for me. But if I wanted to keep my job, I didn't have much of a choice. By the time I arrived at the hotel, the rain had soaked me to the skin. From a distance, I spotted Kevin surrounded by a group of people, talking animatedly. I pushed through the crowd and shoved the black plastic bag into his hands, eager to finish the errand as quickly as possible. Mr. Gray, here's what you requested. He didn't catch it properly, and the bag fell to the floor with a loud plop. It rolled a couple of times before spilling its contents, contraceptives. The room went dead silent. Every eye in the room turned to me, their expressions a mix of shock and disbelief. Kevin raised an eyebrow, calmly bending down to pick up the items. "Apologies, I have something to take care of." "Excuse me," he said smoothly, his tone unfazed. Without missing a beat, he wrapped an arm around my waist and guided me into the lounge. The door clicked shut behind us, the lock turning with a soft snick. That familiar yet unfamiliar scent of sandalwood surrounded me. He let out a low chuckle. "Isla, this is the second time you've mistaken me for my brother." It took me a full 3 seconds to process his words. The man standing in front of me was Lucas Gray. Seeing the items in his hands, my face flushed crimson. Sorry. I was looking for Kevin." Lucas's smile froze for a moment. "Kevin," he repeated, his tone unreadable. He didn't say anything more, but the next second, Kevin's voice drifted in from the adjacent room. "Who told you to bring her here?" he barked, irritation clear in his tone. Jenna's whiny voice followed. "I just wanted her to see us together. I just wanted to mess with her." Kevin let out a sharp laugh, and the sound of something crashing echoed through the wall. Jenna's cries turned into desperate pleas. "You're pathetic," Kevin sneered. "Do you really think you can challenge her? Want me to blacklist you?" I'm sorry, baby, I was wrong." Jenna sobbed. "Then get on your knees and take your punishment. When Isla gets here, remember to cry pretty for her." I felt like I'd fallen into an ice-cold abyss. My nose stung as I fought back the bitterness swelling in my chest. Even though I had broken up with Kevin, he had no right to let Jenna humiliate me like this. A pair of hands gently cupped my face, pulling me back to the present. "Isla," Lucas said softly, "did you hear enough? People who can't stay loyal in a relationship aren't any better than trash." For some reason, Lucas seemed unusually cold tonight. His calm demeanor was tinged with an air of unapproachability. The storm outside raged on, wind and rain battering against the windows. His words struck a nerve, and I flinched. The anxiety I'd been suppressing for days finally erupted. "Mr. Gray, that night. I hadn't broken up with Kevin yet. So doesn't that make me just as bad?" My voice cracked as I spoke. "Shoo." His lips brushed against mine, soft and cool, silencing my words. Lucas chuckled, his voice low and soothing. "You didn't mean to. How could you possibly be like him?" "But I dash." "You're different," he interrupted firmly. "I understand you completely." Lucas had a way of getting under someone's skin, of pulling them into his world with just a few words. Before I even realized it, I was sitting on his lap, breathless from the kiss. In the dim light, Lucas's eyes gleamed with quiet amusement. "While Kevin's off fooling around, shouldn't you enjoy yourself too?" he murmured. "What do you want me to do, Isla? Use the gift you brought me?" He looked every bit the gentleman in his tailored suit, yet his words made my heart race. Before I could respond, his lips brushed against the side of my neck, making me gasp involuntarily. Panicked, I clapped a hand over my mouth. The noise from the adjacent room abruptly stopped. Then my phone lit up with an incoming call. Kevin's name flashed on the screen. Lucas glanced at the phone, a quiet laugh escaping his lips. He answered it for me. "Isla, where are you? What are you doing?" Kevin's voice was sharp with suspicion. Lucas held the phone to his ear, his voice calm and composed. "What do you think she's doing?" Perhaps the thunder drowned out his voice, because Kevin didn't seem to recognize it. All he heard was the mocking provocation. "Who the hell are you?" Kevin roared. "You dare mess with me, Kevin Gray?" Jenna's startled yelp echoed faintly in the background, followed by the sound of something shattering. Meanwhile, Lucas remained unbothered, his tone laced with amusement as he whispered near my ear. "Isla, I'm not forcing you to choose. But tell me, after experiencing something better, why would you go back to trash? Be honest. Am I not enough for you?" My face burned as red as the setting sun. How can you say things like that? I stammered, flustered. Lucas's steady demeanor made it all the more maddening. From the other side of the wall, Kevin's anger exploded. You better shut up. I'll kill you if you don't, he screamed, slamming his fist against the wall. Lucas merely chuckled, his voice low and teasing. Go ahead. Try me. 8. This was, without a doubt, Lucas Gray's boldest move yet. If his assistant hadn't called midway to pull him away, I wouldn't have known how to handle him. Before leaving, Lucas brushed his hand against my flushed cheek and gently reminded me, Kevin's locked up over there. No need to rush out. Just take your time and rest. I could still hear the furious banging on the next door as I sat in the lounge, gathering myself. It took me a while to get up, fix my clothes, and leave in search of something to eat. The server outside the door was clearly one of Lucas's people, each wore matching golden name tags pinned to their uniforms, making it easier for me to identify them. They led me to a quiet corner of the venue. Miss Isla, one of them said politely, Mr. Gray asked us to tell you to wait here for him. He'll take you home tonight. All right, I murmured, nervously curling my fingers. The faint sensation of his touch lingered on my skin, teasing and addictive. Maybe I was still too lost in the haze of what had just happened to notice someone approaching. That is, until a glass of red wine was suddenly dumped over me, pulling me sharply out of my thoughts. I'm so sorry, Miss Isla. The woman stammered, feigning panic. I saw your glass was empty and thought I'd refill it for you. I didn't mean to spill it. My hair dripped with wine as I stared at her chest. Her dark uniform was bare, no golden name tag. I immediately understood. She was Jenna York's friend, pulling the same tricks as before. Without hesitation, I grabbed her by the hair and dragged her screaming into the crowd. Where's Jenna? I demanded. Jenna, she shrieked, clutching at my wrist. Help me. She's hurting me. A hand abruptly grabbed my forearm, stopping me. The voice was sharp, haughty, and unmistakable. Miss Isla, let go of my friend. I turned to face her, studying her closely. Her features blurred in my mind, impossible to piece together. I'd searched for her so many times before, but she always hid behind others, laughing as they played their games with me. But this time, she'd walked right into my hands. In front of everyone, I kicked her hard in the knee. The dull thud echoed across the room as Jenna collapsed to the floor, clutching her leg in pain. Her face paled as she cried out. Does it hurt? I asked softly. I thought about my own knee, the one that ached every time it rained, and added, mine hurts too. When you had your friend trip me, you should have known this day would come. Jenna bit her lip, tears streaming down her face as she stared at the ground. Footsteps approached from behind. Kevin appeared suddenly, grabbing me by the neck and slamming me onto a nearby table. His face was dark with anger. Isla, he growled, do you have any idea she's an actress? How is she supposed to work if you injure her leg? I stared back at him, my eyes burning with rage. And my leg? Did you care when it hurt? Jenna crawled toward Kevin, wrapping her arms around him. Don't blame her, Kevin. It's my fault, she whispered. Her voice trembled as she confessed, that night, I spiked the drink I gave you. But Isla drank it instead. Kevin's expression froze. What did you just say? Jenna cowered under his glare, tugging at his sleeve nervously. I'm sorry. I just love you so much. I didn't mean to hurt Isla. Her meaning was undeniable. That night, the night I couldn't remember, I was with someone else. Kevin's gaze darkened as he scanned the room, his eyes falling on his group of friends. Grabbing me by the hair, he yanked me close. Which one of them was it, Isla? Pain shot through my scalp as I struggled against his grip, my nail scratching his face in the process. Wiping the blood from his cheek, Kevin smiled, a chilling, twisted smile. Your lover must have some guts to challenge a Gray. Thanks to him, Isla, you're going to play another game. Without hesitation, he shoved me into the crowd. I fell to my knees, the sharp pain shooting through my leg bringing tears to my eyes. He stood over me with a cruel smirk. "You're dirty now. This time, I won't ask my friends to show you any mercy." The Greys were powerful, and this wasn't the first time Kevin had played such a game. The onlookers quickly stepped back, unwilling to get involved. As the sound of footsteps closed in behind me, I clenched my fists and forced myself to stand. I scanned the crowd desperately, searching for Lucas. But Kevin and Lucas looked so alike, it was impossible to tell them apart. Every time I grabbed Kevin's sleeve, he'd laugh and push me back into the crowd. "Isla, stop looking for me," he sneered. "I don't want you anymore." On my final attempt, I pushed through the crowd and flung open the door, crashing into someone's arms. The familiar scent of sandalwood washed over me, and my tense body finally relaxed. My legs gave out beneath me. Lucas caught me instinctively, holding me steady. Kevin, who had been watching from the sidelines, burst into laughter. "Isla, wrong again," he taunted. "That's my brother." Lucas looked down at my disheveled state, the warmth in his eyes vanishing. In its place was a cold, piercing sharpness. Kevin, oblivious to the shift in Lucas's demeanor, strolled over lazily. "You're such a pain. Why do you always mix us up?" He smirked, glancing at Lucas. "Hey, want to join in? She can't tell the difference anyway. Isn't she into two-timing? Let her have her fill." Lucas shrugged off his jacket and draped it over me, his movements deliberate and calm. Then, he slowly rolled up his sleeves and walked toward Kevin. Kevin chuckled, still full of bravado. "What about that guy she was with the other night?" he jeered. "Where'd he go? Why isn't he stepping up now?" Lucas stopped in front of him, his expression unreadable. With a casual motion, he reached out and grabbed a fistful of Kevin's hair. Kevin's cocky grin twisted into a scream as Lucas forced him to his knees. The room fell silent except for Kevin's pained cries. Lucas's voice was low and steady, carrying a chilling undertone. "Her man is here." He leaned in closer, his smile razor sharp. "Do you have something to say?" "Everyone says Lucas Gray is polite and charming, but how could a man who took the Gray Corporation to the top be easy to reason with?" That night, I saw Lucas lose his temper for the first time. The moment it happened, his assistant had already led security in to clear the room. With his usual calm demeanor, Lucas addressed the guests. "Apologies, this is a private family matter. I'll have to ask you all to step outside for now while I handle it." Kevin, still dazed from the sudden turn of events, looked up at his brother in disbelief. "Lucas, what are you talking about?" The security team took over, holding Kevin down as Lucas let go of him. Lucas pulled out a handkerchief, meticulously wiping his hands without so much as glancing at Kevin. "The person I just spent hours calming down, this is how you treat her?" His tone was cold, detached. Kevin's gaze darted to my face, realization dawning on him. His expression turned ashen. "So, it was you that night," he stammered. "Lucas, listen to me." Kevin's voice grew frantic. "She has face blindness. She mistook me for you. You're not the type of man who'd settle for being mistaken for someone else." I felt my chest tighten, and I instinctively looked away, guilt gnawing at me. Lucas tossed the handkerchief aside, his voice eerily calm. "If Isla can't tell us apart, then maybe I should solve that problem for her. Let's start by leaving a scar on your face. That should make things easier." Kevin froze, staring at Lucas in shock. "Lucas, you can't be serious." But when he realized Lucas wasn't joking, panic set in. "Lucas, you can't just ignore the rules." "Isla's my girlfriend," he shouted. Lucas tilted his head slightly, as if Kevin had just told him a joke. "Rules," he said, his voice laced with amusement. "I don't believe in rules whether it's business or love." 9. By the time security dragged Kevin out of the room, he had fainted from the sheer stress of it all. Jenna York, however, was still clinging to her last shred of hope. Lucas glanced at her, his tone sharp and cutting. "Miss York, I hear you enjoy spiking drinks? Jenna shook her head furiously, terror written all over her face. Before she could say another word, a guard pressed her firmly down by the shoulders. Lucas's lips curved into a faint smile as he said, "Call the police." "Congratulations, Miss York, your acting career is officially over." That night, I was a mess not only emotionally but physically. My knee injury flared up again, and I developed a fever. On the way to the hospital, I curled up in the corner of the car, refusing to look at Lucas. Not a single word passed between us. It wasn't until he carried me into the hospital room that I tried to resist, pushing at his chest weakly. But Lucas held my hands down gently, his voice low and steady. "Isla, don't be afraid of me." And just like that, the floodgates opened. I couldn't stop myself from trembling. It wasn't Lucas I was afraid of, nor Kevin. It was the stark realization that I was utterly powerless in front of either of them. I was nothing more than an object, something to be fought over and discarded at will. And maybe, for the rest of my life, I'd have to rely on someone else's pity and generosity just to survive. Lucas didn't say anything else. He stayed with me until late into the night. When his assistant quietly knocked on the door, Lucas stood up, put on his coat, and prepared to leave. Before walking out, he turned back one last time. "Isla," he said softly. "I'm not Kevin. If the day ever comes when you want to leave, I won't stop you. I'll always respect your choices." With that, the door shut quietly behind him. I buried my face in the hospital blanket, memories flashing through my mind like an old film reel. The first time I met Kevin was during a college event. Back then, I was a star student in forensic psychology, known for my sharp memory and exceptional sketching skills. When the school announced that I'd been selected to represent the graduating class as a keynote speaker, it felt like the culmination of all my hard work. Kevin, fresh out of college and still a reckless playboy, had been sitting in the audience. He claimed it was love at first sight and began pursuing me relentlessly after that. No girl could resist the kind of romance a rich heir could offer, and I was no exception. But when he finally confessed his feelings, I hesitated. I had plans to study abroad for my master's degree. Kevin, with his impulsive nature, wasn't the type to handle long-distance relationships. When I brought it up, he surprised me by saying he understood. "Before you leave, let me take you out for one last dinner," he'd said. That night, we were in a car accident. Because of where I was sitting, I took the brunt of the impact. My injuries were severe, and I was rushed into surgery. As an orphan, I didn't have any family to call. When my professors and classmates arrived at the hospital, they found Kevin covered in blood, waiting outside the operating room. The doctors told him there was a chance I'd never wake up, that I might end up in a vegetative state. Without hesitation, Kevin said he'd marry me, no matter what. When I finally woke up, I learned that the accident had damaged my brain. I couldn't recognize faces anymore. My once sharp memory had dulled to the point of being useless. The professor who had been planning to supervise my graduate studies emailed me, expressing his regret. "Miss Isla," he wrote, "prosopagnosia makes it impossible for you to be a criminal profiler." And just like that, my future was gone. The bright, promising forensic psychology student was reduced to nothing more than Kevin Gray's girlfriend. People said I was lucky that an orphan like me had managed to marry up after a car accident. But only I knew what I'd lost. Day by day, my wings were clipped. My ambition, my dignity, my spirit, everything was worn down to nothing. 10. During my recovery, Lucas Gray seemed busier than ever. Every day, his assistant would deliver flowers to my room, always starting with the same ritualistic introduction. "Miss Isla, I'm Mr. Gray's assistant." By the day before I was set to be discharged, the assistant came again, but this time his expression was hesitant. "Miss Isla, Mr. Gray has been." He trailed off, as though carefully choosing his words. I looked up at him, half expecting him to say something like, "Mr. Gray hasn't been eating properly and his stomach's acting up." Instead, he surprised me. "Mr. Gray has been thinking about you every day," he said. He's been wondering when you'd be willing to see him. He knows that the way he acted that day was, well, overbearing. Like a brute. But that wasn't his intention. He's hoping you'll give him a chance to explain. As he finished, the assistant added in a lower voice, almost conspiratorial. And just so you know, Mr. Gray never does anything illegal. He's a law-abiding citizen, through and through. Lucas seemed to know me too well, like he could see right into my thoughts. He understood exactly what I was afraid of. After thinking it over, I decided to meet him. When I arrived at the restaurant, I saw Lucas again. Today, he looked different. There was something refined, almost regal, about his appearance, and for the first time, I couldn't help but notice how good-looking he was. As I tried to figure out what had changed, he smiled. His tone was calm and gentle. I asked you here today to talk about your future plans. I hadn't expected him to get straight to the point. He slid a perfectly cut piece of steak onto my plate, his voice soft. You didn't get to finish your education. Do you still want to go back to school? Hearing the word school after so many years made my eyes sting. I can't, I said, my voice barely audible. Because of the face blindness? I nodded. Then treat it. And if it can't be cured, switch fields. Don't tell me you never brought this up with Kevin. I had, in fact. But Kevin had brushed me off, saying, Isla, how much money do you think you have? Without me, how could you afford the tuition? Isn't it enough to just stay by my side? Being my girlfriend isn't such a bad deal, is it? I lowered my gaze. No other programs are willing to waive my tuition. In the most difficult years of my life, I'd lost the one skill I was most proud of. With my inability to recognize faces, even finding a job was a struggle, let alone going back to school. But I also knew that this moment, sitting across from Lucas, felt like a second chance. Taking a deep breath, I asked, Are you offering to send me back to school? A genuine smile lit up his face. Yes. But Isla, let's keep emotions out of this. If I'm going to sponsor you, I expect something in return. My hands clenched under the table, bracing for the worst. But Lucas simply smiled and continued. Setting emotions aside, I want a capable partner, someone with expertise in psychology. I hope that person will be you. The words I'd feared never came. The waiter opened the windows, and the warm summer breeze swept in, carrying the scent of blooming flowers. For the first time, I felt truly seen, not as a burden, not as someone to pity, but as a person. I smiled, a genuine smile that I hadn't felt in years. All right. Lucas's assistant brought out a contract. In clear black and white terms, it outlined our arrangement. Lucas would fund my education, and once I graduated, I'd work as a psychological consultant for his company for 3 years. It wasn't an unreasonable deal, but it definitely wasn't an easy one either. The assistant added, The Gray Foundation treats all scholarship recipients equally, Miss Isla. If you have any concerns, feel free to raise them. I shook my head. This is more than fair. With shaky hands, I signed my name beside Lucas's bold signature. After the assistant left, I noticed Lucas was still staring at me. Do you have something else to say? I asked cautiously. He leaned back, his demeanor shifting from professional to playful. Now, let's talk about something less logical. Isla, I'm 28, and I've always been a man of discipline. That night was my first time. My face instantly turned as red as a tomato. You can't just say that. I stammered, my eyes darting around to make sure no one had hurt him. Lucas tapped the table lightly, unfazed. Well, considering how many people in the world are, let's say, used up, I suppose being taken advantage of isn't the worst thing. You don't want me, and I can't force you to. But still, I lost my precious first time. From now on, I'll probably be a broken, loveless man. I couldn't take it anymore. Bursting out of my seat, I rushed over to him and clamped my hands over his mouth. Stop talking. He raised an eyebrow, his expression clearly amused. What do you want me to do, then? The implication in his words made my face burn even hotter. I quickly pulled my hands away, like I'd touched something scalding. I'll take responsibility, I mumbled. Lucas smiled, his voice soft and teasing. Well, that's the best news I've heard all day. By now, I'd figured him out. Lucas had a clear line between business and personal matters. Money debts were money debts, and emotional debts were emotional debts. But the way he went about settling emotional debts? That was a whole different story. It wasn't until he pulled me into his car that I realized something felt off. Wait, I said. Something about this logic feels weird. Lucas leaned back in his seat, completely at ease. It's fine. I'm not insisting that you take responsibility. If you want to curse me out for being shameless or say I deserved it, that's entirely your choice. After all, I'm the one who got involved in this mess. It's my fault for loving someone who doesn't love me back. Before he could finish, I slapped my hand over his mouth again, my voice trembling with embarrassment. I already said I'll take responsibility. 11. I never expected Lucas Gray to act so quickly. I sat at my desk, halfway listening as my coworkers gossiped. I heard the bride-to-be from the Yates family has unusual habits. Unusual? How so? She's got 3 sisters. And? They like to do everything together. What's that supposed to mean? Well, let's just say Kevin won't be the only one in their marriage. The gossip abruptly stopped when Lucas appeared in the office doorway. He called my name. Isla, come with me. Still preoccupied with thoughts of Kevin's engagement, I didn't even notice Lucas locking the door behind us. By the time I snapped out of it, I was already in his arms. Isla, he said, holding me close, take a look at these professors and tell me which one you'd prefer. It turned out that the emails I'd sent out had received responses. Several professors were interested in taking me on as a student. Without hesitation, I picked the mentor I'd always admired. The paperwork would take about 6 months to complete, and during that time, I'd be going abroad for treatment. As I finalized my decision, I suddenly realized how close Lucas and I were. Our position felt too intimate. I awkwardly moved my neck and muttered, I'm feeling a little warm. That's normal, Lucas replied casually. I didn't turn on the AC. With practiced ease, he reached for the zipper of my dress and pulled it down. Isla, he murmured, his voice low and teasing, I don't have much time left. Before you leave, I need to make sure I leave a lasting impression. His lips brushed against my skin, soft and deliberate. So that even 3 years from now, you'll still remember me. I had to admit, Lucas was very dedicated. With just a few words, he had me completely disarmed, my rationality slipping away as I clung helplessly to the desk. Somewhere in the haze, he slipped a black card into my hand. The back of the card bore his signature in elegant script. I weakly pushed it back at him, muttering, I don't want it. It feels weird, like you're trying to keep me. Before I could finish, Lucas silenced me with another kiss, his eyes dark and stormy. Aren't you? I shot back. Lucas's tone was light, almost indifferent. This card contains everything I own. My entire fortune. I didn't realize you thought me capable of being so reckless, throwing my entire net worth at someone just to keep them. Tears welled up in my eyes as I stammered, What are you trying to do? Are you asking me to marry you or something? Lucas let out a laugh, low, soft, but tinged with exasperation. Isla, you didn't hear a word I said last night, did you? Seeing my confused expression, he smiled to himself. Well, I should have guessed. I must have been too indulgent, making you so happy you couldn't hear a thing. He leaned in and whispered, So, let me say it again, Isla, please marry me. That's the last clear memory I have of that day. I lost control after hearing those words and ended up making an absolute mess of Lucas's office. By the time he was cleaning up, I was curled up on the couch, my face burning with embarrassment. Lucas, ever the problem solver, handled it all without a word of complaint. I decided to play dead, refusing to acknowledge what had just happened. And so, the proposal was left unresolved. As I left the office that evening, I noticed commotion outside the neighboring building. A coworker tugged at my sleeve. "Isla, look. It's Jenna York, that web series actress." Following their gaze, I saw Jenna pinned to the ground by several large men. A woman stood over her, delivering a series of sharp slaps to her face. "On your knees," the woman said lazily, her voice dripping with disdain. "Lick it clean." I glanced down and noticed a coffee stain on the woman's expensive shoes, which also marred her designer dress. Jenna sobbed, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to see Kevin." "I never said you did it on purpose," the woman replied coldly. "I'm simply telling you to clean it up. What's wrong with me wanting to bully you?" A coworker shuddered beside me. "Kevin can barely protect himself right now. Jenna's just a small-time actress who fell into Luna's hands, she's as good as finished." As Luna walked to her car, she caught sight of me. Her head tilted slightly, and then, to my surprise, she started walking toward me. "Miss Isla," she said with a faint smile. "Let's have a chat." 13. Kevin's face was completely ruined. As the police shoved him into the squad car, he thrashed like a rabid dog, barking threats in my direction. "Isla, don't think I'll forget this," he screamed. "When I get out, you're dead." I sat on the stone steps outside the villa, my clothes disheveled, blood trickling from the cuts on my neck. Fixing my gaze on him, I replied calmly, "You're not getting out. I'll make sure of it. Everything you've done to me, I'll tell the police every last detail. There were plenty of witnesses back then. Now that you've lost the power you had in the Gray family, I'm sure at least one or two people will finally come forward." Kevin thrashed harder, his eyes burning with fury. "Isla, you be dash." Before he could finish, the officer slammed the door shut, cutting him off. The flashing red and blue lights faded into the distance, leaving the villa shrouded in silence. It was then that I noticed Lucas standing across from me. He walked over, draped his jacket over my shoulders, and crouched in front of me to disinfect the cuts on my neck with a cotton swab. The emotions I'd been holding back all night suddenly broke free. My body trembled as I leaned forward, wrapping my arms around him. "How long were you here?" I whispered. Lucas hesitated for a moment before answering, "Since the moment I got your text." His phone had received a message from me, a simple address, followed by 2 words, "Wait for me." There hadn't been time for us to coordinate or plan. But just those 2 words were enough. Even though he'd seen everything unfold, he hadn't intervened or acted rashly. This night had played out exactly as I'd designed it, a trap meant to end Kevin once and for all. If Lucas had stepped in earlier, it would have ruined everything. Closing my eyes, I leaned against him, finally letting my tears fall. For a moment back there, I was terrified, I admitted shakily. "I know," Lucas murmured, gently patting my back. "But you handled it perfectly." I thought back to the moment I saw Luna Yates slap Jenna around like she was nothing. That was when I realized that sometimes, survival means knowing when to rely on others. Luna owed me a favor now. Someday, she'd repay it in her own way. As I rested against Lucas's chest, I noticed something I hadn't before, his hands were trembling. "Lucas, you..." "Shoo." He interrupted softly, burying his face in the crook of my neck. "Isla, don't say anything." On the drive back, Lucas held my hand tightly, never letting go. He seemed utterly exhausted, his head resting against the seat as he dozed off. Under the dim glow of passing streetlights, I noticed the bruises under his eyes for the first time. After hesitating for a moment, I sent a text to his assistant, Mr. Carter. "Me, has Lucas been working a lot lately?" A few minutes later, Carter replied. "Carter, yes. The company's been dealing with some trouble, caused by Mr. Kevin, of course. Mr. Gray hasn't had a proper night's sleep in days. Carter, continued, just this morning, the police came, trying to arrest Mr. Gray on false charges of corporate fraud. Thankfully, we cleared things up in time. It suddenly made sense why I couldn't reach him earlier. Kevin had even stolen Lucas's car to pull off his latest stunt. I typed another message. Me, are Lucas and Kevin not on good terms? This time it took Carter 3 full minutes to reply. Carter, their relationship is extremely strained. For one, Mr. Gray's exile overseas years ago had a lot to do with Mr. Kevin's meddling. So the harmonious brotherly bond the Gray family liked to present to the world was nothing but a facade, hiding years of betrayal and power struggles. Carter, Miss Isla, Mr. Gray had just gotten back from dealing with the police when he saw your text. I imagine it was a lot for him to handle on top of everything else. I'm tied up at the moment, can I ask you to keep an eye on him tonight? I glanced at Lucas, his hand still gripping mine even in his sleep. Me, got it. I'll take care of him. 14. It was my first time stepping into Lucas Gray's home. I had expected something extravagant, like Kevin's over-the-top mansion. At the very least, I thought it would be a sprawling estate with scenic views. Instead, it was a spacious high-rise apartment. From the window, you could see the river cutting through the city below. Lucas, now fully awake, rummaged through the shoe cabinet and handed me a pair of brand new slippers. Your change of clothes will be delivered later, he said casually. You'll have to wait with me for a bit. He stood under the soft glow of the lights, his eyes fixed on me, unblinking. That single look was enough to make my face flush. I turned my head away, trying to focus on anything else. My gaze darted around the room until it landed on a portrait hanging on the wall. It was a sketch. I wasn't great at recognizing faces, but the small signature in the lower right corner immediately caught my attention. Curious, I walked closer. The signature read, Isla. This drawing. Leaning against the wall a short distance away, Lucas replied, You drew it. When you were 15. You witnessed my kidnapping and gave this sketch to the police. The person in the portrait was my uncle. He's dead now. A flicker of memory surfaced in my mind, hazy and fragmented. It had been so many years ago. I'd never thought much of it. To me, it was just a small, inconsequential moment. I happened to have a photographic memory and a knack for sketching, and when the police asked for witnesses, I simply drew what I saw. Unfortunately, I can't remember faces anymore. I smiled faintly. I'm glad it helped. Lucas moved closer, wrapping his arms around me from behind. Do you know why I hung it here? He asked softly. To remind myself never to trust anyone blindly, he said, his voice low. And also, to remind myself that I'll always belong to you. Lifting me onto the dining table, he took my hand and guided it to his tie, wrapping my fingers around the silk fabric. A life for a life, he murmured. So, Isla, you don't need to hold back with me. The night outside grew darker, obscuring his face. All I could feel was the thunderous rhythm of his heartbeat beneath my palm. My voice wavered, hoarse and unsure. So, this is about repaying a debt? Lucas raised an eyebrow before leaning down to kiss me. Tonight, he was relentless, his hands gripping my waist, refusing to let me escape. It wasn't until I saw bursts of light behind my closed eyelids that he finally pulled back, a teasing smile tugging at his lips. Exactly. I'm worth so little, huh? Repaying a debt with a kiss, and I'm even willing to lend a hand dash. I slapped my hand over his mouth, cutting him off. You dash. What about me? He said innocently, pulling at his collar. If you're not satisfied, Isla. His words made me freeze, my gaze locked on him, unable to look away. Lucas scooped me up effortlessly and carried me to the bedroom. Judging by that stunned look on your face, Kevin must have never. Before I could process what he meant, he pinned me onto the bed. Tilting my chin up, he forced me to meet his eyes. Now, Isla, I want you to feel very carefully the difference between me and him. Outside, moonlight shimmered on the river's surface, rippling with the current. Occasionally, a wave would crest before dissolving back into the flow. A moment later, the moon dipped below the horizon, disappearing from view. That night, Lucas pushed me to my limits. Caught in his almost playful, yet relentless, need to outshine his brother, I found myself crying, begging him to stop. It wasn't until dawn, after I clung to his neck and whispered every sweet word I could think of, that I finally drifted off into an exhausted sleep. 15. A few days later, I boarded a plane bound for another country. At the airport, I passed Lucas Gray, who had just returned from a business trip. Neither of us felt regret about the brief encounter. It was late autumn. The maple trees lining the streets glowed a fiery red, their leaves scattered like embers on the ground. Walking along a quiet, unfamiliar path overseas, I called him. That day at the airport, what were you holding? Was it for me? It's nothing, Lucas replied, his voice calm as always. It'll be the same when you come back. All right. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. During that time, Lucas and I barely saw each other. Life, as it often does, didn't go exactly as planned. My condition turned out to be irreversible. With that realization, I let go of my dream of becoming a criminal profiler and shifted my focus to studying criminal psychology instead. The day before I was set to return home, I received an email from Luna Yates. After reading it, I couldn't sleep for the entire night. The next day, I went to see Kevin Gray. Word on the street was that his sentence was being reduced, and he was in good spirits when he saw me. After 3 years, Kevin greeted me with a smirk. Isla, he said, leaning back in his chair. Are you ready for my revenge? Looking at the familiar yet unfamiliar face in front of me, I calmly placed my work badge on the table. Kevin, let's talk. 3 hours later, Kevin was back in custody, this time for assaulting a police officer. And then, an old case resurfaced. The car accident that changed my life? It hadn't been an accident. Kevin had tampered with the car, trying to keep me from leaving for school. The original plan was to injure my leg, delaying me just long enough to miss the semester start date. But the crash ended up ruining my entire future. Luna had uncovered everything, what he'd done, how he'd done it, and why. The evidence was airtight. Kevin had no way to deny it. Back then, he had promised to take responsibility for what he'd done, driven by a fleeting sense of guilt. That promise didn't even last 3 years. After leaving the prison, I compiled all the evidence Luna had sent me and handed it over to my lawyer. This time, Kevin wouldn't be walking free. I wasn't in the best mood after that. I canceled my remaining appointments and went straight to the Gray Corporation. I thought Lucas would be waiting for me alone. But as I approached his office, I overheard a conversation inside. Well, Mr. Gray, someone mocked. You've been holding on to that ring for 3 years, and you still haven't given it to her? Must be one of those old, unwanted trinkets. Or maybe, you got dumped. The man's tone was dripping with schadenfreude. Lucas let out a cold laugh in response. I don't have your kind of luck, Mr. Holt, proposing at the airport only to get rejected on the spot. If I were you, I'd have jumped off the nearest bridge. I froze, my hand hovering over the door handle. Lucas had always been composed, polite, and restrained. Even when provoked, he rarely lost his cool. For him to say something like that, whoever was inside must have struck a nerve. The other man's voice rose in anger. If you hadn't stolen the ring I wanted, I wouldn't have failed. Maybe you should take a good look in the mirror first, Lucas shot back. Before things could escalate further, I pushed open the door. Lucas. The verbal sparring inside the office came to an abrupt halt. Lucas turned to me, his expression instantly softening into a warm smile. Isla, you're back. The other man, Mr. Holt, I presumed, looked like he'd swallowed a fly. His face darkened, and he stormed out of the office, slamming the door behind him. I tilted my head curiously. Who was that? Lucas didn't blink. A pest. My attention shifted to the ring box sitting on his desk. For some reason, it made my heart flutter with excitement. I always thought someone like Lucas would propose in a grand, romantic setting. Something quiet, elegant, and meaningful. But as soon as we left the elevator, he slipped the ring onto my finger without a word. I stared at him, confused. Lucas, however, looked completely indifferent, his gaze fixed straight ahead. The two of us walked into the lobby, where the employees were gathered around, half listening to one of the vice presidents drone on. The VP, upon seeing Lucas and me, froze mid-sentence. His eyes filled with tears of relief. "Mr. Gray, what are you doing?" he asked, his voice trembling. Lucas smiled and casually took my hand. "Taking my wife to lunch." The room fell silent for a moment before whispers erupted around us. "No way. Mr. Gray actually has a wife? I thought that was just a rumor." I seriously thought he made it up to save face. "Can't blame us, Mr. Holt's been going around saying Lucas is delusional." I was starting to believe it. It wasn't until that moment that I realized what Lucas had been holding at the airport 3 years ago, the engagement ring. As we stepped outside, I tugged at his sleeve and whispered, "Lucas, don't you think that proposal was a bit rushed?" He handed me the oversized ring, his tone gentle. "It was rushed. But I don't mind. Even if it's on the street, just put it on me." I blinked. "Wait, are you saying I should propose to you?" "Why not?" His eyes were so soft, so full of affection, that it made my heart skip a beat. "Please marry me," I blurted out. Lucas chuckled, leaning down to kiss me. "Okay." The next day, news of Lucas being proposed to went viral. Meanwhile, another headline read, "Holt's third proposal rejection, this time by Luna Yates." When asked about it later, Lucas smiled faintly. "I have no idea why Mr. Holt and I keep crossing paths," he said. "It's truly different lives, same circumstances. After all, not everyone can be as lucky as I am to receive my wife's undivided love." The crowd erupted in cheers and laughter, while Mr. Holt, who had just walked in, looked like he was about to explode. As for me, I sat beside Lucas, my face burning with embarrassment. After last night's wedding night, I was still too shaken to think straight. Somehow, Lucas always knew how to use his soft tone and gentle words to get exactly what he wanted. Even as we got into the car, Holt tried to stop him one last time, his voice desperate. "Lucas, how do you get someone to propose to you?" Lucas raised an eyebrow, his tone calm and unbothered. "I'm not telling you." With that, he stepped into the car, leaving Holt fuming on the curb. Over the years, Westbridge saw countless weddings and proposals. Eventually, Holt did manage to marry Luna Yates. But as far as I know, Lucas remains the only man in the city to have been proposed to by his wife in the middle of the street. The end.